Fingers crossed to the almighty Zoom people that are out there. Hello, Zoom people. Shirley Marston, I see you out there. I hear you might be out there all the way over in Boston. Doc's son's wife. She's in her 90s. Very sharp woman. Hey, Shirley. Hope you're doing all right. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thanks to Kim in the back and to Rusty in the front, the hosts of the Comet Talk here at Coconino Community College. I really appreciate them doing that every month. It's a lovely deal. Hopefully you've all shown up tonight for Dr. Marston, the Colorado River historian, the Colorado River historian. Now, wait a minute. I thought I was a Colorado River historian. What's up here? No. If you're a Colorado River historian, you know this guy is the Colorado River historian. And I learned why we're going to say that. So I'll translate that to you tonight. I learned that in 10 years putting this book together, which is here up front. It's Dr. Marston, Grand Canyon's Colorado River Running Historian, Volume 1. This only goes up to 1960. This thing is a great doorstop. You take this book and hold you. That's Volume 1. I don't know what Volume 2 is going to look like. My heavens. As Rusty said, MissionTemplePress.com is where you can buy this book if you want to get it. Really appreciate the Comet Talks and the chance to just mention the press here in Flagstaff. Been in business about 20 years. Hey, if your cell phone is turned on, please turn it off. And if you have questions, hold those to the end. If you find yourself bursting out loud laughing, then I'm doing my job. It's all right. So let's get going here. Have any of you ever seen a PowerPoint with a slide like this and you know that's terror? All I want to do is tell these people thanks, because you can't do a book project for 10 years without needing a lot of people to help you, and they're all in there in fine print. So that's that. Marston lived his entire life. This is Otis Reed Marston, lived his entire life in Berkeley or in the Bay Area. Way over there on the map. The Colorado River Basin, we here in Flagstaff, where that capital B is in Basin. And the big gold star is where the Huntington Library is. And Huntington's going to be a big part of Marston's life, my life too. So I'm going to go back to August of 2006. This is the Kolb Garage in a lovely museum collection. A woman named Colleen Hyde, she works at the Parks Museum collection in Grand Canyon National Park, let me into the Kolb Garage to see this boat. What a mess. Well, the Park Service gave me this really nice fitting suit that I could put on to get in there and clean that boat up. And I learned that that boat, the little red, white, and blue one in the middle here, was Grand Canyon's first story. And I knew nothing about it at the time, but everybody said, you've got to go to the Huntington Library because that's where you're going to find out about this boat. You've got to go to Dr. Marston's collection. And, well, we did. They've got the coolest gates there. I mean, the coolest wrought iron gates. And this wonderful giant building, Amundsen, the Amundsen building has this incredible reading room in it. I've got to know all the people in that place very, very well. There in the Marston collection, we found one little box with a ream's worth of paper in it. And in talking to the family and going through all the papers in that box, we were able to write the book, Big Water, Little Boats, in 2011, about the first Grand Canyon dory on the last of the wild Colorado River. One little box in the Marston collection, and we got a book out of it. Wow, okay. In 2011, Hazel Clark, my heart-suffering wife over there in the corner, we decided to publish Doc's manuscript and start a bio on Marston. Well, what was his manuscript? That poor guy. I mean, wait a minute. Yeah, the truth be told, what were we thinking? We thought this would be easy. In 2011, the Huntington Library started to allow digital photography, and that has blown historians out of the water because now we have tens of thousands of documents instead of, hey, I can write a book out of six documents, right? I got 6 letters, that's a book, right? Not anymore. Now we're in trouble. 9 boxes in Marston's collection had his unpublished manuscript. So we whipped out our little cameras, 9 boxes, not too many. They're all half boxes, so they all got about a ream of paper in them. We copied those chapters and took his manuscript and published it. And that's from Power to Power. This is a recounting of the first 100 river runners through the Grand Canyon. That came out in 2014. Okay, so that was Doc's book hidden away in his collection. Now, it's time to work on Doc's file. Let's start with the bad news. There's only 432 boxes in this collection. I'm talking about banker's boxes or these half boxes. There's about 40,000 photographs. There's 251 3-ring binders full of photographs, 54 rolls of microfilm, 162 reels of motion pictures, and about a little over 250,000 pieces of paper. Easy, right? Huh. Oh, there's 4 additional collections in the Huntington that Marston reeled in. And there's 6 historic boats at Grand Canyon National Park that this guy's responsible for getting in at the park. So what do? You start with box 1, right? You get your digital camera and you start taking pictures. And then you go to box 2, and then you go to box 22, and then you go to box 222, and you get my life for the last 10 years at the Huntington. Okay, day after day, turning pages with my digital camera. Don't dare look at anything, because then you're lost and you slow way down. You do that at home with your cup of tea. At the Huntington, you gotta just take pictures all day long. That's what I do. Now, thank heavens for good news. There is an online collection guide. Richard Quarteroli, a local historian, printed that thing out. It's over 200 pages. And it still doesn't get it right. But I only learned that later. More good news. I love this. This is what's in the Marston collection. This is a letter from Georgie White, the woman of the river. She's writing to Doc. And she sends that letter in March of 1954. And Doc writes back in April of 54. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me that in his collection is every letter he wrote? That's what I'm telling you. Here's a letter from Doc in March of 1953. He's trying to find a river runner named Ray Cogswell, the photographer on the 1909 Julius Stone River trip from Green River, Wyoming, all the way down to Needles. And Cogswell writes back April 19th, and they become pen pals until Cogswell dies. And all those letters back and forth are in the Marston collection, along with tens of thousands of other letters. Any of you show of hands in here, who's good at emails? Who's like, who really kicks the emails out every day? No hands. Oh, I got one hand. You are the Doc Marston of your day. He was typing, boom, 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 zip, boom, 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 zip. Out they went. This is the tip of the iceberg of the signatures that are in the letters. There's Barry Goldwater, there's Walt Disney, there's Superintendent Hal Bryant, there's Elzada Clover, there's Lois Dowder, there's Don Harris, there's David Rust, there's Johnny Maxson, there's Frank Dodge. Oh, my hero there. I mean, this is amazing. The letters that are in this collection, and Marston is writing to all these people. As a biographer, it just doesn't get any better than this. I didn't know. But it wasn't easy, I'm just telling you. There's a lot of it. The 251 3-ring binders. These things are stunning. I take pictures of each one I look at. I got more pictures. Well, what's in these binders? There'll be a photograph, and there will be some text that he's typed on, and there'll be a map of where this picture was taken. Wow. All right. Well, let's take this one apart. There's a nice photograph there, which in Photoshop looks even better. The boat's named the Millard. Who's that guy standing there? Well, that typewritten text on there says, outboard motorboat Millard en route to Lee's Ferry. Copy of print owned by H.A. Samsky of Phoenix. Caption on the back of the print, taken 5 miles from Marble on Lee's Ferry Road, October 28, 1933. Neil Johnson stands by the boat. It was used to transport from Lee's Ferry to the placer operations in Gretchen Bar. That's up in Glen Canyon. What the binders and the collection helped me understand was that there were a lot of river runners out there that we have never heard about. And Marston was reeling them in, one at a time, or maybe two at a time. I don't know, he was that good. So what did I learn about this guy? I learned about his parents to start with. I figured, let's start there. His dad was orphaned at 9 and ran away to sea from Boston Harbor when he was 17. 8 years later, he's commanding a 4-masted sailing ship as the captain out of San Francisco, going up to Washington State to get lumber. He said, I'm bringing oak to Oakland. Idella Alice Reed, she was born in 1863, and her parents moved to Hawaii for the sugar trade. And on a trip back to the States, she met the captain of the sailing ship she was on, a guy named Marston. Huh. He was 28 years older than her. They were married. She went out to sea with him in 1884. You got to remember, in 1884, there were sailors who would refuse to walk up and get on the deck of a ship if there was a woman on board. Idella was a woman way ahead of her time. She helped form the PTA. I learned some amazing stuff about her. She was the anchor of that house. They moved to Berkeley in 1892. They had 5 children. Their 6th child died. You can read about that in the book. There's Otis in the middle of his gang. Let's see, in 2nd grade in 1901. The captain was 70 years old when he was 11. He and his sisters did not have a close relationship with the captain. He was called the old man. Well, he was an old man. Marston, Otis fell when he was a kid and broke his leg. He didn't run, he didn't play football, he didn't win that stuff. He swam. And he swam across the Golden Gate with his other high school swim team buds. And yeah, oh, and he got into skiing back before they invented poles. So you can stand up, you just kind of hang on, you tie your feet to 2x4s and off you go. In 1916. He was on the sculling crew in Cornell in 1917 for his 2nd bachelor's degree in industrial engineering after his electrical engineering degree in 1916. And then the war was going on. You gotta read the book. It was hard for him to get into the service because of his bad eyesight, but he figured that out. Graduated from Annapolis in 1918, and they sent him to submarine school. And he was thrilled. Not everybody was thrilled to be a submariner back in the First World War, but he loved it. They sent him from New London Naval Base out to San Pedro in California. And on the train, they stopped in Williams. They got the spur chain up to the South Rim, and he hiked down to Hermit Rapid with his Navy buds and looked at the rapid and said, I can swim that rapid. And he would a couple decades later. He was a commander of the H-class submarines. You can look that up on Wikipedia. And his dad was terrified. The captain of Sail and Sextant was like, son, this command of yours is unsafe. And indeed, Marston left the Navy in 1920 to help sort out his father's finances, which is kind of funny because much of them were underwater. And for a submariner, I guess he was good at that. But his dad had purchased some rental homes in Berkeley, and that got the family along. He married Margaret Garthwaite in 1925. She loved river running too, which was a good deal, but she couldn't swim. And they got this house on Vine Street in Berkeley. This house is still there. And you see the big wooden doors at the bottom. There's a big basement in there, and that's where Doc had his collection. And the kids called it his submarine. And you didn't go down there, you didn't mess with it down there. The guy who owns this house let me have a tour of the place and let me go down in the basement. I was very cool. If you ever get a chance, go on that home tour. So Doc's dad dies at 91. He had been the mayor of Berkeley. Everybody mourned it when he passed. Otis has a ton of nicknames. I won't, there's a list of them here in the book. At this time, he was going by Margaret was going by Mag. They have a son named Garth in 26 and two twin girls in 1927. And they're the girls in Garth, and they're all going to be river runners. Duh. How could you guess? The Bohemian Club. Anybody in this room heard about the Bohemian Club? San Francisco is still in operation today. What's fascinating is some of the stuff in his collection he got because he'd be at the Bohemian Club having a drink with some lawyer who said, "Hey, you're a river runner. I'm taking care of the estate of Louis Ransom Freeman." Marston's like, "Wait, that river runner who was on 1923 USGS trip? Yeah, that guy. They're throwing away all this stuff." "Are they now? Where's that?" "Oh, in LA. He's on the plane down there the next day," and reels that collection in. The thing about the Bohemian Club that Doc really liked was he had a good singing voice. And every year they put on these amazing plays. And they still do today. So there he is. He loved this stuff. He just loved this stuff. And a clue. Financial planner for E.F. Hutton, 1934 to 1947. When he discovered his boss was having an affair with a secretary, he took it to his boss's boss. His boss fired him before his boss's boss could intervene. And that's how you got to read about it in the book. What do we got? Finally to the river. Taking 15 minutes to get you guys to the river. Phew. The guy on the left with the bags is a gentleman named Norm Nevels, who's running a little boating company out of Mexican Hat, Utah. The guy on the right leaning over to get the thing off the boat is a guy named Neil Wilson, an advertising agent that's a good friend of Doc's. And Norm is complaining on the river trip. No one will book his Grand Canyon river trips because they're going to die. They're sure of it. And Wilson says, "Listen, I tell you what, if you give me a 50% discount, I'll bring my kid, I'll bring my friend and my friend's kid. We'll take the kids down the river and we will show the world that the river is safe." Neville said, "Deal." So in 1942, here they are, the sons and the dads, nine guys on the river. Wouldn't it be cool if we had we do have some film. Marston came to this trip with a 16mm camera and a bunch of color film, and he was good at it when he showed up. That's pretty cool. One of the really neat things about these films, besides they're in color, this is Badger Rapid. And the cool thing is, this rock right here is still there. And this run here on the tongue is where you want to go today. So we can use these films as a way to see what's happening today, what has changed and what has not. And that's, oh my gosh, there's 4 gents here on a log. Now, I'm rethinking James White, did he or didn't he? Well, that's a pretty big log, and it took 4 of them to get it in there, in the river. But boy, look how well it floats. So now we're talking about indigenous people boating the river. Yeah, maybe. These films are full of amazing stuff. What else we got? Hey, there's a guy in the water. That's Big Ed Hudson. He's going to make the Esmeralda and try to uprun the Grand Canyon, and Marston's going to be with him. This boat flipped in Lavachua Rapid. And the press was up at the Desert Watchtower with the binocs and said, "Oh, wow, they flipped the boat." So they called them at Phantom Ranch. Norm got on the phone. And he said, "Hey, you flipped the boat. Tell us all about it. We're going to run a story." And Norm's like, "We didn't flip a boat." And Doc would figure out that kind of protectionism about what's going down on the river is old news. Garth ran down and got that hat. Norm's hat, got it back. So there are the kids, 1942, the 19th river trip that we have documentation for to go through the canyon, and their dads. How cool is that? Well, Marston figured that out right away. Hey, this is safe for kids, and it is super fun, and nobody's doing it. On that 42 trip, he got a nickname Doc, as in doctor. Now, if you have a nickname like Doctor, somebody's going to ask you for some help with some physical thing. So that nickname didn't last very long until he became Doc, D-O-C-K, where you tie the boat up to at the end of the trip. In 1943, Doc started running films in San Francisco, trying to book trips for Norm. And this is from a flyer from 44. It proved dividends to Norm right away. He had people showing up in Mexican hats saying, hey, we were in San Francisco. We saw this guy Marston gave a talk, and we're here to do the river. Norm was like thrilled. But Marston wanted to be on the water. And in World War II, he's like, Norm, I want to go boating. And Norm said, well, let's run the San Juan. So they did, 1944. In 1945, Doc's like, I want to be on the water. Let's go run the Salmon and Hell's Canyon up in Idaho. And Norm's like, I got no gas, I got no tires, I got no trailer, can't do it. Tell you what, let's run from Moab to Lee's Ferry. Wouldn't it be cool if we could see those people in action when they were sitting there? These two gals on the right, that's Doc's twin girls. Here's Doc's wife. This is Joni McClellan. She's 16. She doesn't know how to swim like Doc's wife. Got a life jacket on. Her dad was supposed to be on this trip. He couldn't go. So he said, it's just like summer camp, and there'll be boats, and it'll be fun. He apologized to her when he saw this film you're about to watch. Wouldn't it be cool if we could see them there? Wait, there they are. Oh my heavens. So they started in Moab, they went down through Cataract Canyon, Narrow Canyon, Glen Canyon, and then to Lee's Ferry. This was during the war, and you rode the mail truck from Thompson Springs down to Moab to get there, and that's what they did. The mosquitoes were terrible. So they cut these branches and put them on the boat to hide themselves. I think they rode fast. It's how it really worked. Doc, again, he knows how to run a camera, and he has I've learned, this man had a wicked sense of humor. I mean, but he was good with camera. That's the Doll's House at Spanish Bottom. Of course, Cataract Canyon is just below there. There's a lot of film of water like this. Doc's a swimmer across the Golden Gate. This kind of water just captured him. I didn't know this. I just slowly learned all this stuff about this guy. But this is about 29,000, 28,000 cubic feet a second of water at Big Drop 3. It's called Satan's Gut. You can see why. I mean, that guy needs a Rolaids. So there's Doc, and they're going to portage and line these boats. They're not going to run that rapid. It's too dangerous. So he's going across to this boulder. He's going to climb up on a little ledge there. Eventually, they're going to get a life jacket to him, and they're going to sling that boat out away from those rocks, but not into the rapid. That's what they're going to try to do. This tool is in the bottom of river runners' toolboxes today, but it is rusty, and we don't use it. But we need to remember that lining and portaging is totally allowed in the journey of river running. It's really terrifying, and you can hurt yourself badly, but this is what they did. So Norm's got to keep the boat off the rock. He's got to hang on so he doesn't get whipped out. They've got to stop the thing before it gets bashed on the rocks, and it's empty. That boat is empty. Now look at that. That's even harder, pushing that thing over the rocks like that. Once they get it down where they want it, they have to load it back up again, and then they can sneak back out into the tailwaves of the rapid. And that's Doc's daughter and his wife. Slinging the bags there, Ed Hudson, Wayne McConkey. This is cool. This is Gypsum Rapid, which today in Cataract Canyon has just cleaned itself of the muds from Glen Canyon Dam, making a reservoir backing up into that rapid. So the people looking at the emerging rapids are looking at this film going, whoa, this is what it looked like. That's Wayne McConkey in Dark Canyon Rapid. Dark Canyon has yet to emerge. This is a left run, and he's doing a great job of it. He's wearing his life jacket too. That's pretty cool. The only wore your life jacket during the rapid. So here they are in Glen Canyon. They went down Cataract. They picked up the Green River above Cataract. Now they're in Glen Canyon. There is Arth Chafin. This is Height. This is his paradise. At Height, Utah, where the Height Ferry was. I'm sorry, I'm just a sucker for these films at Glen Canyon, before Glen Canyon Dam. Just amazing. And the river is just, it's just lovely down there. Beautiful, beautiful country. This is near the hole in the rock. So down below the San Juan confluence. That's Tapestry Wall. We were over there last year, and the reservoir level is up about there. So these films just are absolutely amazing. One of the things that Doc learned, oh well, Joni, what are you doing? Oh, you're gonna have a dance tonight, are you? Great. Well, Ed Hudson wants to go. I learned that Doc Marston had a sense of humor. What do you think, Ed? You look pretty good in that mirror, huh? Enough. Doc realized that Norm needed both, and he had to pay them. And Doc was like, well, tell you what, Norm, if I row a boat, you don't have to pay me. I won't pay you for the seat, but you won't have to pay me. And Norm was like, sign me up. So there's Doc and his wife rowing there. This is at Lee's Ferry. There's Margaret, Doc's wife. And they're gonna go down and take out at the Paria. And Doc set his camera up on a tripod and just made this time lapse. Must have shot a whole reel here doing this. See that little kid there with his dad? You think that kid became a boater?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they got to take the boats and they got to put them on trailers and they got to push them out of there. And then they go, whoop. 1945, 1946, Hell's Canyon on the Snake, and 46, Salmon River. Doc put a film together about this. I'm going to show you a clip. You get to shut up for a while. And there's sound. So you're going to hear a narrator talking about the trip. See if it works.
Hell's Canyon's ruggedness is a dare to anyone with a spirit of adventure. And we fly over the winding track of the Snake River. And it's easy to see how the canyon lives up to its name. Yes, the Snake River is a tempestuous ribbon of water, a challenge few men care to face. Along the back, our voyage down the Snake River starts at Brownlee's Ferry near Weiser, Idaho. Brownlee's Ferry is at the head of a string of wild, tossing rapids. And ahead of us are 148 miles of river. And there's nervous excitement in the air as we prepare for the trip through the worst of it, including the body slamming we expect in Hell's Canyon. What's going on here, Bill? What's he putting down there?
Well, there's a lot of gear to take on the trip, Steve, and unless you pack it in the boats properly and lash it in, you're not going to wind up with as much as you started with.
I imagine before this is all over, it's going to be pretty wet inside and outside.
There's hardly a dry spot in the whole trip.
That's Kent Frost.
The boat skippers are born river runners. Norm Nevelis, Ken Frost, and Press Walker. The passengers are Neil Wilson, Howard Welty, Ferris, and Harry Dodge, all Californians. Also along is George Fletcher of Boise, Idaho, Doc and his wife Margaret, and their twin daughters, Mardell and Lowell. And now we approach our first rapid, a churning, mighty upheaval of water, an unharnessed arm of power. Yes, Mother Nature must have been angry when she carved a way for the Snake River. There's nothing meek about it. Only one boat at a time into the rapids, says Doc, and the others await their chance. Well, Bill, there's sure some excitement in store for us tonight.
Yes, there is. Running white water's an old sport in this country, and the odds are all against your becoming a professional.
How many real whitewater professionals are there in the country?
Well, it's hard to say. I'd venture a guess and say 10. That is, 10 good ones.
And the Joan hits it first. And now you feel the sheer strength of the river. You're caught in its grip, and there's no escape. But these guys are miracle men when it comes to beating the rapids. There's plenty of tumbling stretches of water just like this one. There's Kinney Creek, Doyle Creek, Squaw Creek, Buck Creek, and Saw Pit Creek Rapids, just to mention only a few. And now the second boat is swept into the torrent. The wind, piloted by Norm Nevels, who has made the Colorado River run several times in his career as a whitewater man. This is a sport of men with red blood in their veins, and there's always a chance of losing someone. The third boat to enter the rapid is the Mexican Hat. This boat battled the Colorado River rapids 2 years in succession. And now her pilot, Kent Frost, guides her into the teeth of the Snake River. Now the Mystery Canyon points her bow into the rapid. Yes, keep your eye on her pilot. Press walk. And over he goes. And the rough one dumped. And now it's man against rapid, and he'd better do more than just a little swimming. Save a sinking ship. No, running whitewater isn't easy. There are times when you have to work hard to stay in competition. But after the boat is relieved of its unexpected cargo of water, we continue on downstream. Well, he's a little worse for wear, and a river plays no favorites. And even the veterans find it tough going.
The next year, we ran Green River, Wyoming, through Ashley Falls, the Door Canyon, Echo Park, and Split Mountain. That was 1947. On that river trip, Doc brought his son's wife, Shirley, hey Shirley, his twin daughters, and Norm brought his daughter. So the kids are getting into boating. And Marston's like, this is super fun. 1947 Grand Canyon River trip, the 20th at Bright Angel Beach. Doc's son Garth is rowing a boat for Norm. So is Doc. The summer of 47, Doc decides to write a small pamphlet. On river running history. He and Mag make the first of many road trips to visit river folk. And this is where Doc starts breaking away from Norm. Doc had learned his history from Norm, and now he's going to learn that Norm's history isn't quite right. And he's going to learn that by visiting other people. In 1948, Doc starts his split from Norm. He does run Grand Canyon with Norm. There's Doc on the lower right. But on the upper left is Ed Hudson, who ran Cataract Canyon in 45 with Doc and was on the 42 trip with Norm and Doc in Grand Canyon. Ed has built an up-running boat, and he wants to up-run the Grand Canyon. On the upper right is one boat that's Preston Walker and his wife and Doc and Mag, and they're going to take the first documented river trip down the Dolores River. I want to mention that Doc was a strong advocate for a dam-free Echo Park, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in the book about that. I learned a ton of stuff about that. Let's talk about Doc and the Huntington Library, because that's why I'm here today. It was because of Doc's connected with the Huntington. He first showed up there in 1948 to the reading room, just like Hazel and I did, where you go when you want to see what's in the archives. He wanted to look at maps, the early maps of the Colorado River. And the head librarian came by and said, Now, Mr. Marston, you're not working on a PhD. What are you doing in our reading room? And Doc said, I'm looking at river runners. What do you got on river runners? And Leslie Bliss said, nothing. What are you doing? And so Bliss said, I will turn my photostat man over to you to make unlimited photostats, which in those days you took a picture of the document. That was a photostat. And Doc was thrilled because he didn't want his house to burn down in Berkeley and lose the journals he was collecting and the letters he was collecting. Bliss turned Marston over to the ladies of the Huntington, which are the real people that make that place work, and they taught Doc library science. Absolutely amazing. Doc was looking at a Verifax copier in 1954, and the ladies of the Huntington said, buy it. Doc realized somebody had brought him a journal that had silverfish in it, and he didn't want it to get into the submarine basement. And the ladies of the Huntington said, here's the chemical you need to use to keep those little guys at bay. Within a week of his death in 1979, his entire collection was shipped to the Huntington. Well, you know a little bit about what was in there. What have I found in there? Correspondence with past and contemporary river runners and their family members to get their letters, diaries, and pictures. Doc's letters to them and their letters to him. Records of all past and contemporary through Doc's life, river trips he could document, including the Colorado River steamboat era. This is crazy. Correspondence with National Park Service staff at Grand Canyon and Dinosaur National Monument about the National Park river permit systems of the 40s and 50s. No one has ever written on this because nobody knew, but the material is in the archives. Absolutely amazing stuff. Norm Nettles and Ed Hudson in 1948 got the first 2 permits to boat through Grand Canyon. Nettles, Hudson, and Don Harris were issued permits in 1949. The Don Harris permit is the trip Burt Loper dies on, if you know your river history a little bit. Interview notes with river people. Doc would visit people. Burt Loper, there's a whole bunch of notes with Burt. They've never been there if Doc hadn't collected them. Doc's river runners on his own river runs, information on that. Colorado River geographical areas, and I discovered that Marston did a bunch of horse packing trips near Navajo Mountain out to the San Juan. This is rugged slick rock country. And he had a bunch of indigenous guides and he interviewed those people. By the end of the 1940s, Doc on the left and Norm Nettles on the right, these 2 guys, I'm figuring by mileage, had boated more than anybody else on Western rivers at that time. And unfortunately, Norm crashed his plane, small plane, in September of 1949. After Norm's passing, Doc kept right on boating. Here's just a few highlights of Doc's river trips and the people he met. You're gonna love this picture. 1927, this is Hermit Rapid. This is the Pathé Brave film crew. They're gonna hike out. Marston met with a bunch of these people and got their stories. Dr. Elzada Clover, 1938 to Grand Canyon with Norm Nettles. On the Clover expedition, Melissa Sidney's book has just come out, Brave the Wild River. Read it, it's a great book. 1940, Norm ran a trip from Green River, Wyoming to Lake Mead. This is the first Nettles expedition. On that trip was Charlie Larrabee, and Charlie would start his own company to compete against Norm. Who knew? 1941, Z. Grant shows up with a folding kayak. How cool is that? Doc discovered 1 or 2 or 5 trip wonders you would never hear about. Bill Davis, his wife Fern, and daughter Millie, amazing river runners doing amazing stuff. Never heard of them. Bill Beer and Don Daggett, you probably heard of these guys. We swam Grand Canyon, a fun, cheap vacation got lit out of hand. What Doc wrote about was the next trip on the river after them, which was seeing crazy, these weird, looked like human footprints, but had these crazy marks like giant beaver tails either side of their footprints. They were scared to death. What is this? It was the swimmers taking their bags and crawling up on the beach to light a fire and warm up. 1957, the water is huge. It's the highest water we have documented anybody boating on, 126,000 cubic feet a second. This is water backing into the Paria River from the main stem, Colorado. There's Doc with his cameras and his notebook always ever present, trying to walk across the Paria. That's the Ross Wheeler. You hike down the South Pass, you see that metal boat. Look how close the river is to it. This is the type of boat Doc was using in the 50s. Twin Evinrudes. Look at that huge bit of sand. This is the mouth of Tapeats Creek. The water has crested from 126 and starting to drop, leaving these huge sandy beaches. And there's Deer Creek Falls running straight into the river. Wow. Yeah. Wait, what? Pre-dam. Oh, why is that boat there going into lava and there's nobody on it? They didn't tie the bow line up well enough. They're up scouting. Hey, Doc, is that your boat? Oops. And I haven't found the film of it flipping yet, because there it is. They caught that boat 8 miles downstream, and they lost a lot of stuff in it. On that trip in 57, a huge amount of driftwood had gone out into Lake Mead. And they had to deal with this giant driftwood mat. And they got the propellers on their little boat, so they got to be very careful, and they got to push that stuff away. 1959, the Walt Disney film 10, there's 10 years friendship with Walt Disney in there before 59. The jet boat down run and up run of 1960, was Georgie.
Thread. Meanwhile, Georgie is shown the controls of the jet boat by John. She and her party will follow quietly a day later aboard her great air-filled rubber mattresses. Fuel is put ashore for use on the uprun. Sun temperatures are high enough in the canyon to boil petrol, or rather gasoline as our hosts call it. Marston gives it a go all the same in Big Red.
Austin's going to break his leg right there when that giant boat is in the air and lands. The boat doesn't make a U-turn. He's on the deck.
The boat looks to be out of control. Upstream we have no... By great good luck, contact has been made with Luke Air Force Base. Down 5,000 feet into the canyon after a desert flight of 150 miles.
This is John Hamilton. He's the best jet boat driver in the world at the time. He's been working to get Me Red, this little jet boat, up this rapid for hours. He's finally got it figured out how to do it. These jet boat drivers, when they succeed in climbing a rapid, they will spin the boat around to make a big jet tail of water, a rooster tail of water. So you see John, he's just so thrilled. He's got the rapid now. He knows it. He's in the tongue. He's home free. He's thrilled. He's powering up. Look how much he's powering up. He's going to throw this rooster tail. And when he does, the gate in the jet in the back halfway closes into reverse. And he can't unclose it. And he's at the top, and that's his full throttle right there. And he's like, what the heck is going on? And they end up wiring all the gates open, and they just abandon reverse. The behind the scenes on this river trip, I wrote all about it. Remember, I only go up through 1960. It's just some absolutely amazing stuff. Buzz Belknap was on that trip, 16-year-old jet boat driver, still alive, amazing guy.
Tom, can you go back into it?
To us, it's the world's biggest milestone, marking the last stretch of river with room for the boats to play tag. But we are down to 3 boats and 7 men. Wee Yellow sank in a few seconds in big water in the Black Granite Gorge, and her crew left us by the trail of Bright Angel. To unwind. But Doc was not entirely right. It will take more than a lifetime to unwind. The jet boats born in New Zealand have proved themselves. And under the willow in the Colorado desert, our friend Doc has a celebration ready.
The only trip to leave Lee's Ferry, go to Lake Mead, turn right around and go right back to Lee's Ferry. These guys, Buck Whitehat, Copper Guy, Bahi Ketchum, and Sid Whiskers Doogie, they took Marston all over the slick rock of Glen Canyon. Just some amazing people. There were the women behind the men, which you never hear about, and they're in the book. This is an amazing photograph of just amazing people. One of the things I learned about Doc, and I'm wrapping it up now. Doc loved legends. He loved to sing. He was an actor. He understood legends. And he approved of them. But Doc knew that history was often written by the victors. Small group of people in a room, not letting the others come in and defend themselves. Yeah, he knew that history was wrong because it wasn't the facts. And he searched for the facts, and the facts oftentimes stank. And so he embraced the skunk. So in closing, I'm in the Huntington. You got to go there if you're interested in any river history. It's really, I'm in there, and I'm a robot. I turn a page, I take a picture. I turn a page, I take a picture. I'm doing this all day long. I'm a robot. But in the table next to me is somebody who's looking at this thing, a 14th century handwritten manuscript. They got the Blue Boy there. They got a Gutenberg Bible there. They got all this stuff. And all of the librarians at the Huntington are hovering around to make sure it's all braced and right. And I'm like, whoa, I'm turning pages, taking pictures, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then I can't pick up, it's an envelope, and it's really heavy, and it's in my box. And I've been taking pictures of gasoline receipts from a 1956 river trip, I get this, and I look in the envelope, and what do I find? I got a head gasket. Ha! Evinrude, 35 horse, big twin. Thanks so much to Rusty and Kay for letting us give this talk tonight. No, I have not finished volume 2. Yes, it is in work, but it's gonna be a while. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the 60s and 70s. Now is a good time. If you have questions, and those of you on Zoom, if you want to drop those into chat, we'll field those, and then we all get to go home. Any questions here?
So I guess I have a lot of questions, but the first question is, did Doc then end up writing anything himself or publishing anything himself? Did he
Good
actually
question.
publish a book?
Did Doc write anything himself? Did he publish anything himself? He wrote a chapter about oh gosh, I'm gonna space out. The book was about dinosaur and Dinosaur National Monument for the fight against Echo Park. You got a chapter in there. He's got maybe a couple dozen articles here and there, magazines about river trips and about boating and things, and his manuscript, which he never published. And I, if I could talk to him on bended knee, I'd say, hire a ghostwriter and get it out the door. I would do. Kay in the back.
Question from Zoom. Did Doc Marston ever correspond with then Bureau of Reclamation Commissioner Floyd Dominy?
I don't know, did Marston write with Dominy, with Floyd Dominy, the commissioner of the Bureau of Reclamation? Remember, these dams happened before Dominy became the commissioner. So you need to go back a commissioner or two. Look at the finding aid online and just type in that guy's name. And if he did, it'll be in. I don't know. I haven't got that for you.
The same person is asking, did he also correspond with David Brower regarding the Grand Canyon Dams, Marble and Bridge Canyon Dam?
So did Marston write with Brower about Marble Canyon and Bridge Canyon dam sites? Now that's in the 60s. I'm working on that.
Okay.
Brower lived not too far away from Marston, and they were on the phone, and the phone kills me. Now Marston's on the phone to people in San Francisco. Sometimes he'll do long distance calls. And so we don't have the letters. There's a couple letters with Brower I've found so far, not many, but Marston will say, Brower was over for dinner, or Brower this, Brower that. I saw Brower at this meeting, blah, blah, blah. So they are communicating, but I don't have much on that. Good question.
What about Glen Canyon Dam? Did he correspond much on that? Was he activist on that?
Good question. What was Doc's relationship with Glen Canyon Dam? Again, no, I'm gonna back up. I don't have that slide. There's a picture of who's Sauron, the boatman that takes the boat across the river when you die, right? And there's a load in the boat and it says Glen Canyon on it. Marston hated that thing. Just like Echo Park, he was like, no, these are wrong. Marston would look at the water coming out of Hoover Dam, that green water coming through the turbines, and he'd say, that water's dead. It's like spoiled meat. It's lost its red color. It's lost its silt. Not a fan. And Harry Adelson, his good friend, was looking for a nuclear bomb at the time. This is heavy stuff you're talking about.
Did Doc alienate some of the river runners with his efforts to collect the history of running the Colorado?
Lovely question. Did Doc alienate river runners in his quest to collect the history of the Colorado River? Absolutely. Norm Nevels in 1949 told all his passengers, don't you dare share anything about this trip with Marston. If Marston wants to know about it, he can come to me. What were they hiding? One wonders. Even today, to try to get information about injuries that happen on the river is like pulling teeth. Marston knew that in the 40s and 50s, and he didn't like it. And the 60s and the 70s, he didn't like it. Yeah, it got him in trouble, in quotes.
What about the motorboats? I recently actually was up in Rogue River in Oregon where they're still doing it, taking these jet boats up the rapids. But my sense is hearing it here is that was fairly common at the time. Maybe just talk about, was it happening in a lot of rivers and out here in the West, and or was it just unique to a few of these really big rapids?
Yeah, so if I could paraphrase your question, you're asking about jet boats on rivers. They're still in the Pacific Northwest, but they're not in the Grand Canyon.
Right.
Jet boats were new in 1959 to America, and they were new to the Grand Canyon in 59 and 60. They were new to the Salmon River in 59. The first uprun was with these Bueller turbocraft.
Oh, wow.
But it was contentious. And in the book I write, Superintendent McLaughlin was like, yeah, it's Marston. He's got this trip going. I can't stop him, but there will be no other trips like that ever again. He's writing to another superintendent friend about that river trip. And so, for me personally, I mean, I'm a wilderness guy. I don't think motors need to be there. And that's what wilderness is all about. It's contentious. And it's just going to get worse in volume 2. And I'm going to weave into that. I haven't teased that out yet. But Marston liked motors, and yet he rode a lot. The last trip he actually piloted a boat on was in a tiny little sport yak, and he's rolling through Grand Canyon. And he did other river trips where he wasn't a pilot, motor. Yeah, it's a fascinating question, Kay.
What kind of communication did Doc have with David Rust?
What kind of communication did Doc have with David Rust? A ton. There's a whole box. Rust, R-U-S-T.
Yep.
So Dave Rust is the first dude wrangler on the Colorado River. Dave Rust was leading passengers through Glen Canyon in the 1920s. And Doc learned a ton about Glen Canyon. That correspondence is very rich between David Rust and Doc. If you wanted to research it, go to the Huntington, get that box. Or ask me, I'll send you the whole box. I got it all photographed. Really rich. Doc asks Rust before he dies to donate his canvas canoes to the Park Service. The canvas canoes he used to lead passengers in Glen Canyon in the 20s. And Rust does. Very cool. So it's a very rich communication.
Another really great question. Did Marston's research influence policy decisions regarding the preservation of rivers in the American West?
Did Marston's research help with the preservation of rivers in the American West?
Policy decisions.
Policy decisions. Unfortunately, no. And here's what Marston learned. He was really good friends with Superintendent Harold Bryant in Grand Canyon. And he was teaching Bryant. The Park Service wasn't on the river in any patrol fashion until 1968. They were so late to the game. And Marston's trying to teach these people. He was desperate to get on the river with the head of the Park Service, director of the Park Service, Secretary of Interior. He's writing these people letters. It didn't happen. When John McLaughlin, superintendent of Grand Canyon National Park, walked in, Marston met with him for 3 hours and left that meeting in total disgust. He said, the guy's just a bureaucrat out to protect his job. He knows nothing about the river, doesn't care about the river. So unfortunately, the Park Service was late to the game to get into this river management stuff. Does that answer that question?
I would assume. Jonathan can let us know if
Okay.
it doesn't. There's another one. He said, yes, it does.
Thank you.
He wants to know when Ken Burns is going to work with you to do one of his multi-part documentaries on running the Colorado River.
Ken Burns needs to know, when Ken Burns comes knocking on my door, I'm gonna say, sir, you don't wanna talk to me, you wanna go right to the Huntington. Here's the coolest thing that Doc did, and Ken is gonna just be in bliss land when he finds this out.
Yes.
The Huntington's Marston collection is as close to the public domain as you can get. These films, you simply cite source and you're good to go. Absolutely amazing. And so I'm thinking about maybe doing a once a month, 1 hour, let's just do a Zoom thing, film from these 160 films in the
Totally.
Marston archive. I got most of them digitized. Absolutely.
I don't think he
amazing
knows
stuff.
that you're the next Ken Burns.
No. He's a smart guy. I don't know how to spell. I got good, smart people helping me to edit this stuff.
And I'm all in on the film day.
I'm his story. That's all. I'm a researcher. I love taking pictures and turning pages. And drinking tea, reading this stuff.
It sounds like Doc took a lot of time off work to do these trips, especially at a time where, it wasn't as easy to get around. Was he independently wealthy? Was there family money so that he could afford to do a lot of this?
Really good question. So the question is, was Doc independently wealthy? When Doc's dad died, he left no will and 5 children. Doc was helping his dad with his dad's affairs, but his sisters hated how Doc, this is a patriarchal deal, right? Father to son. The sisters said, pay us out right now. We're out of here. We want out. And they got lawyers involved and there was a big fight. Doc gets a job with Hutton, and Doc's pretty smart, and he starts investing. So when 1947 comes along and he gets fired for that, you can read about it in the book. The clients at Hutton en masse walk out and walk over to Marston's house and say, hey, will you manage my funds? And he says, sure. So until he dies, or they die, he's managing a bunch of people's funds. So he's making money that way. And on some of these river trips, he's making money. So I'm like, wait a minute, is he running a commercial trip? No, he will bring people in at cost. But the Bohemian Club is having him rub shoulders with presidents and captains of industry that are really wealthy, that are real happy to make sure that his boats are paid for and his fuel's paid for.
Sponsorship.
So there's some sponsorship going on here. But the money wasn't easy. And it wasn't everywhere. And I hear that about Marston. Oh, he was just a rich kid. No, I hear what.
I noticed many of these fellows did not wear shirts. And I'm just curious if you read anything about kind of what happened as a result. I mean, I would just be fried.
Skin cancer rates.
Skin cancer and sunburns. It looked miserable. I mean,
it's not in the records.
Okay.
They're dying, they're drowning, they're dying of old age, they're dying of heart attack, smoking. Norm smoked like a chimney. There's a ton of the guys, you got Kent Frost, and they're just smoking. Doc's wife will die of lung cancer in 1968. Smoked like a chimney. Doc didn't smoke. That's got not skin cancer, as far as I can tell. Okay.
Did Doc ever try to stir up feuds among other river runners?
Really, really lovely question. Did Doc stir up feuds amongst other river runners? On the contrary, what I found and what I wrote about in the letters documented is Doc was a peacemaker. Absolutely amazing. And it's just letter after letter. He's like, oh, look, put your lawyers away. You shouldn't be suing this guy. Go to the other guy and say, put your lawyers away. You shouldn't be suing. You guys need to work this out. Again and again and again.
That's great.
I was just amazed. That's a really good question.
You want another one?
Yes, please,
Okay.
bring them, bring them.
Are there, are there aspects of Marston's work or legacy that are still debated or questioned by you or other historians today?
Are there aspects about Doc's legacy that
Or
are
work.
Sorry?
Are there aspects of his work or legacy that are still debated or questioned by you or other historians?
Not by me, after 10 years of research, and it's in the book. Basically, I'm writing what I'm finding in the letters in the journals. I'm just putting it all out there. I let the book speak for itself. I let Marston speak for himself. Pretty lovely. I have no questions. I will hear from other historians that Marston, as an example, hated Norm Neville's. What I found was if somebody talked Neville's down, Marston would bring Neville's up. If somebody talked Neville's up, Marston would bring them down. Norm was a normal guy. That's how Marston saw him, as a normal guy. He made mistakes, he did good things. I was stunned by this. So I'm like, bring it. And I have to be very careful because Marston did some really stupid stuff. One was work with Walt Disney to put a monorail to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. I write in here, America would have spit in his face if they tried to do that. And they did fail, of course. So, there's just, you gotta read the book. Am I trying to sell the book? Of course I'm trying to sell the book. But you want to know about Marston, the history of river running and the history of park management and river runners, it's there.
Somebody said the best thing you said all night, I'm paraphrasing, was to get rid of lawyers. I'm just joking. And that's not what you said, that's what he said,
I
right?
got lots of lawyer friends, so that's all right. Marston had lots of lawyer friends too.
This is speculative, but if you were to channel Marston to today, and if he were to be here looking at the river, what would his attitude potentially be to comment on the state of the Colorado river management and river rafting today?
What would Marston say today about today's water management and river running? It's a really good question. In the 1940s, Marston was trying to tell the Park Service, river running is going to be like skiing. It's going to explode. And so when the exponential curve took off in the 1960s in Grand Canyon, Marston was like, I told you it was going to happen. Marston didn't like dams. We see a lot of dam mismanagement, water mismanagement now. So he didn't write at home with that saying, look, I told you people. Barry, I told you not to vote for Glen Canyon Dam. I told you not to do that. So, I think he'd be right at home on the river today. I'd love to sit down and have dinner with him. I mean, just to, God, he was there seeing all of this stuff. Today, we're so disconnected from that past, from our heritage, how this all happened, how we got to where we are. You would probably have some very fascinating things to say.
Got another one if you're up for it.
Go for it.
Okay.
I'm following your lead.
Did Doc have insight into what happened to Bert Loper on his ill-fated last run of the river?
What a lovely question. Did Doc have insight into what happened to Bert Loper on his last river trip in 1949 with Don Harris? You bet he did. So Marston is worried about Loper. Marston first meets Loper in 47 and talks a lot with him, and 48 and 49 before the river trip, and Bert admits to Doc and David Rust that he's seen 3 doctors and they all tell him, you're a heart attack waiting to happen. You can sneeze and die. And that's me making that up, but that's how close Bert was to going down. They said, don't go on the river. You're not coming back. And Bert told this to Doc and Margaret. He said, they say I'm going to die. And Doc writes to friends, he said, we said goodbye to Bert knowing that we would not see him again. So Bert knew what was going down. And Bert refused. I'm spacing on his name. Can I remember? The guy that was on Bert's boat was a very special guy. He knew how to row a boat. He was on the river trip to row the boat so Bert didn't have to. So when Bert has his heart attack, this guy looks to him and says, Bert, look to your oars, because he knows that the boat is not where it needs to be to run that rapid. And over they go. Yeah, so I focused on that pretty extensively. Lou Fetzner was on that trip. Harry Hilson was on that trip. They had a huge trouble with they didn't have a permit. Don Harris didn't have a permit to do that. And they got a permit from the Park Service after a long phone call to the park, because Harry Ailson was on the trip and the superintendent hated Ailson. Oh my gosh, all right, why did that happen? Well, Norm Neville's hated Ailson. Okay, fine. Yeah, that trip is very well documented in the book. Good question.
With him being the Colorado River historian, did he do any investigating on the disappearance of Glenn and Bessie Hyde back in the 20s?
Did Doc do investigation on Glenn and Bessie Hyde? Yes, sir, he did. So much so that in 1948, he went back to the Salmon River and rode a sweep scow down the main salmon to see how a sweep scow worked, and came away saying, that's a dang good boat. It can do it. Now, there's other authors that disagree, Brad Dimmick, who replicated a sweep scow and was just said, oh, that's just terrifying. Well, Glenn and Bessie Hyde made it all the way through Grand Canyon National Park. She's the first woman to do it by boat. Let's not forget this. They ran hints. They had to work with bedrock. There was some amazing stuff that they did. And Doc was all over it. And he's the one who figured, yeah, they died in Killer Fang. There's that boat was just going to head straight down and right into the fangs. And you're going to be going about 20 miles an hour until you do a dead stop, and you're going to get catapulted right off into who knows what. We spent a lot of time talking to the family. One of the Hyde family, Bessie's brother showed up at his house one day, unexpected, with a bunch of letters and logs. Yeah, Marston was all over that. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Lovely questions, better than the show. And
Do you want Shirley to say hello?
I do. I'd love to. Shirley, where are you? How are you?
It's unmuted. And
just say hi. Just say hi now. Hi.
Voice from up above. Your voice is echoing through the room.
This is Shirley Marston saying hi.
Hey, go ahead.
thank you.
So that was Tom Martin.
Yeah.